Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, as we discussed earlier in the show, as anticipated. It's built in, really, to living in Chicago now, so I don't know really what there is to discuss. It was a very violent weekend, Memorial Day weekend in Chicago, depending on whose numbers you believe. Mike Scott's been reporting 12 dead. I've seen that number. 50 shot, 49 shot, 50 shot, 10 dead, 11 dead, 12 dead.
It's all over the board.
Whatever it is, it's just more bad news. But as I said, it's built into the price. And so we're going to listen to BLM Brandon talk about poverty without explaining to us if poverty is the fundamental cause of violent crime, then how is it that only very few people are responsible for the majority of the violent crime? Why are people who are similarly situated socioeconomically, meaning families who are low income, maybe living in poverty, but they're still law-abiding, if poverty is the proximate cause? Nobody can ever explain that. They just make an appeal to it. So, yeah, we got to spend money. We got to write blank checks to the West Side and the South Side. We got to distribute everybody's cash to hundreds of community organizations. Some do laudable work, some do not. Doesn't matter. We just need to pile up the numbers so we can say we're partnering with 250 community organizations, and we're partnering with these mental health professionals, and we're partnering with these social workers, and Pritzker's bringing in peacekeepers. So we have all these organizations that are presented as complements to police, but the problem is the officials in charge of the city, both in the mayor's office and the Cook County prosecutor's office and the chief judge's office, they see these organizations, even the good ones, as replacements for police, not complements to police, and that's the rub. That's what doesn't work. It's not going to work. It's never worked. It's not working. And so I guess we just get ready for Summer of Joy 2.0. I don't know what else to say about it. For more on this, pleased to be joined by John Garrido, former Chicago Police Lieutenant in the 16th District, president of the Garrido Stray Rescue Foundation, GarridoStrayRescue.org, where I got my dog, Hayek. Yeah. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the show.
So, anything I left out?
You nailed it. You can't do more with less when it comes to law enforcement. It's plain and simple. And if you look at the last 4 or 5 years, you can see the numbers for Memorial Day weekend are the same. And for 4th of July weekend, they're the same. We usually end up with, 12 murdered, 50, 60 people shot. I think we're up to almost 245 or 250 people murdered already this year, 1,100 people shot so far this year. The numbers are going to be the same as they were last year and the same as the year before, unless they start holding people accountable. You were talking about that small percentage that's causing all the crime. The reason why we have all this crime is because they are not being held accountable, and that's not only just from our mayor and their demeanors and what they put out there, don't demonize the youth and things like that, but also our state attorney's office that won't prosecute and whatnot. So it's like coming up with these plans, bringing in peacekeepers. It's like trying to put a Band-Aid on a severed artery. It's not going to have an impact.
Yeah, let's talk about these peacekeepers. This, just popped up right before Memorial Day weekend. Governor Pritzker announces that 30 peacekeepers they're unarmed. They're going to be walking around the streets trying to keep peace, whatever that means. 29 showed up out of the 30, and one joined 6 or 7 men and dragged a guy from his car, beat him to the point of hospitalization while he was wearing that yellow safety vest. So my question to you is, where did they find these peacekeepers, and were they trained?
Well, that's just it. I don't know where they're trained. I guess they're trained on the streets, but they usually try to find people that have a criminal background and that have changed their lives and turned it around, and now they're supposed to be stepping up and helping people steer away from that type of life. And for some they're able to do that, and some it works. But for the most part, a lot of them haven't left that life behind. It's clearly indicated by that one guy.
Mm-hmm. And then Peter Cunningham, he worked with Arnie Duncan, Obama. he said that this was a guy who was, quote unquote, mishandled the stress. I mean, police officers aren't afforded the same, because it's stressful to be a police officer.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. It is stressful to be a police officer, and it's especially stressful to work under these conditions. They're shorthanded. We know that. We talk about it all the time. We're losing 1,000 officers a year to either retirement or resignation. And here, the new mayor's come in, and he still has Mayor Lightfoot's old police detail. There's still 115 police. They've actually added to the detail because Lightfoot still has 6 officers plus 2 drivers assigned to her house and to drive her around. So they're up over 115 officers just still assigned to that. So, when things like that don't change and they tell you not to demonize the youths that are out there, those are the types of signals that they're sending out to the officers that nothing's going to change. And,
we've heard, reports about how poor the morale is. I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time, but it continues to get worse. And so, I want to believe that police will do their jobs and they will put themselves in harm's way and they will be proactive and they will pursue suspects even if they're told, even if the protocol is to not pursue. But, I mean, I also understand that at a certain point, you want me to put my life, my family's lives, our financial stability on the line in exchange for what? So my question is, are we going to see more police on their hind legs, as we saw? John Cass famously wrote, quoting Rahm Emanuel, police in the fetal position.
I don't think police officers are on their hind legs. I think that they're out there doing the best job they can, and they're still doing some great, amazing work. I know we can talk about that dog case, but I mean, they're still officers. They're still out there working. It's in their blood. That's what they do. We just have a significantly less number of them, so they're not able to keep up. Crime is not focused in specific areas anymore. Now it's spread out throughout the city, and it's harder to keep up with. But I think these officers are still working as hard as they can to try to keep these communities safe. I mean, let's face it, even if you want to say, well, how about maybe they're only working harder in some areas than not? Well, I mean, the 16th District is home to a large number of police officers, and we're still having spikes and increases in crime here. We just don't have the numbers. They're still downing beat cars. They're still, we're short on officers. So I think that's really what's having the impact.
Let me ask you a question. If you were the FOP boss, would you, in the next contract negotiation, per Amendment 1, which is now the law in Illinois, would you, if you were Catanzara, whoever the FOP president is or will be, would you negotiate a right to strike provision in the next collective bargaining agreement? And I say that not because police want to go on strike, but I say that as a tool to say, this is you. If you want to push us, then we'll walk and we'll put your theories of replacing us with ex-gangbangers and community organizations to the test.
In theory, I guess that sort of makes sense, but I don't think that would be a good idea at all. I mean, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of officers who are listening right now saying, "What are you saying? Good thing you're not going to be FOP president." But the problem with that is there'd be such a conflict, an inner conflict with officers saying, "Okay, I'm not going to go to work today because of contract negotiations. The city's going to be less safe. My family, my friends, my neighbors are going to be less safe by doing that." There's no way that I don't think any officer who's a real police officer would be able to walk off the job. They wouldn't be able to actually implement that strike. So I think it would just kind of be just.
Well, I just say that. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, and I'm sure that's true. But I just say that because the system needs some sort of exogenous shock. And I mean, the system, by
right.
that I mean the political ruling class and the electorate that suffers, the majority of the electorate suffering from Stockholm syndrome, that needs some sort of exogenous shock, and I just don't know where it comes from other than maybe something that has not been seen before, like a police strike. Or at least
well, you're
the
right,
threat
because
of it.
you would think the shock would be 250 people murdered in 5 months,
It's
or
not.
1,100 people shot, but it's not anymore. It's normalized. People don't bat an eye to it anymore. Like, oh, we've had 1,100 people shot so far in the city this year. Okay.
All right.
Well, well, the other thing though too is, I mean, just to play this out one more step. I mean, police were faced with that with the COVID mandates, and some got sidelined.
Right.
And so, at some point you have to. I mean, I get the feeling, and it's appreciated. That's what you want, police to be civic minded and other regarding. But at some point, you also have to have a moment of conscience with respect to what are we doing? What am I doing? What are the outcomes? We have to do something different.
Well, there's no doubt. There was, I mean, even when there was the whole thing with the vaccination and things like that, there were some bosses that that didn't want to step up because they were stripping officers and putting them in no pay status, and there were some bosses, very few, that didn't want to take part in that, would actually step down and give up their positions as commanders and things. So no, you're right. There needs to be something, and we don't have that ability to strike, so that's obviously not there, and I don't even think it's something that we can negotiate. But there has to be something, and I don't know what it is that will actually wake everybody up and allow some change to actually, real change, I mean legit change to come in.
All right, let's talk about
These
Peppa.
officers are exhausted.
Yes.
Peppa, go ahead, Peppa.
Peppa, yes, the French bulldog who was stolen at gunpoint in Portage Park. Do you know any? It's been returned, but can you give us the backstory and maybe?
Broad daylight, yes. So what I can tell you, because it's still under investigation, but what I can tell you is this woman was walking her little French bulldog, and this guy had a vehicle waiting down the street. He got out. He walked up behind her. He put a gun to her head and then to her face, and grabbed and tried to pick up the dog. She fought and fought hard, and he grabbed her dog and pulled it away from her, caused her significant injuries. The leash actually sliced her hand up trying to hold on to her poor dog, dislocated her shoulder. She had, lots of injuries. He got away. The officers in the 16th district partnered up with a couple other units and were able to use a lot of technology to be able to track, where he went to the vehicle, and to track it to the far south side, the 5th district. Things that they did, I can't go into right now. Everything caused a chain of events that ended up forcing the dog to be let go out of the house, and a good Samaritan recovered the dog, and the dog is now back home safe and sound, and they are still working on the case.
What?
It's
Wait,
just crazy. And she's a 64-year-old woman. They punched her, knocked her down for that dog.
Is this something that is occurring, like catalytic converters now? French bulldogs are being targeted. There's some sort of French bulldog trafficking operation.
Well, they're designer
going on?
dogs and they're expensive.
I mean,
They're
seriously.
expensive and brazen too. But I mean, it was broad daylight. But yeah, that's they get things in their mind of what's valuable, right? So I think wasn't it Lady Gaga, her French bulldog,
Yes.
that kind of put it out there into the media that they're expensive
yeah.
dogs. So they're not walking up and say, okay, is your dog an old French bulldog? Is it a neuter French bulldog? They just see little dog that they believe is a valuable dog, and they think they're going to take it and flip and sell it. And they're not afraid, because it goes back to the old accountability thing. I mean, this is broad daylight. They're out there strolling around and looking for opportunities to do whatever it is that they feel like doing.
I would.
So
If somebody tries to steal Bubba or Bunky, they're going to be in for it. Those are my English bulldogs.
You need to get your dog a right to carry permit now too for the walk. Yeah.
Yes. And they're armed. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, this woman is very, very lucky. I mean, normally you would sell somebody, all right, if it's your car, just give them your keys. It's just property. But I completely understand. I mean, she didn't care that he was pointing a gun at her. She fought.
Yeah, if you're like your car, your kids, I mean, you just turn those over, but not your dog. That's not your dog.
You do not let your dog you fight.
John Garrido, former Chicago Police Lieutenant, 16th District, President of the Garrido Stray Rescue Foundation, GarridoStrayRescue.org. John, thanks as always.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one. Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
It's no news that traditional values are eroding, but Christian educators can do something about it.